Yo, GM, what is good, everybody? Adjust this volume on the music. There we go. What's good, lads? As Chaz just so graciously pointed out in the chat, Trump has a speech going on right now. I did not know. I tell you, I really just don't even focus that much on the news and the headlines. I find it's just distracting for me anyways. I'd rather just trade my levels. I mean, it's good to be aware of what's going on, absolutely, and I don't downplay or discredit that in the slightest. But for myself personally, I find like if I'm focusing too much on headlines or news, it sort of predisposes me to have a bias based off what I think the news should do to price, rather than just focusing on what price is telling me on the chart. If it's into one of the levels I'm looking for, and I get that sort of interaction and reaction, that interreaction at the level that I'm looking for, then the trade is valid. And I find so often it's really easy to just get groupthink and group bias for news headlines from other people's opinions on Twitter, in Telegram chats, etc., where rather than listening to what price is telling you, you try and fit it into a bias that you have ahead of time. So the news sounds bearish, shit, I'm going to be bearish. And then what do you know? Price hits a level and then reverses. Or news seems super bullish, super euphoric, super positive for the markets. And what do the markets do? They do the exact opposite. Is after they hit a high time frame level. You know, I will stress every single live session, every single post, every single message in my Telegram, every single time that I am on the mic, I will stress upon everyone that high time frame levels above everything else. They're all that matter. Now I know I've been a little less consistent lately with the live sessions and with the posting, and for that I do apologize. I have been deep into some systems building, and I spoke about this a few sessions ago about the difference between motivation and obsession. And I gotta say, lads, I am fucking obsessed with some of the stuff that I'm working on right now. It's not quite where I need it to be yet, which is why it's taking so much of my focus and my attention. It's why it's commanding so much of my time, and I do apologize for that. But I know that it's pain now for, I was about to say for pleasure later. It's not about pleasure. It's about improved workflow, improved output, improved process. At the end of the day, that's what my tagline or my guiding philosophy is: process, patience, execution. If I can incorporate and improve on process in any way into my workflow, then I am all for it. I am all about it. JJ, what's good, my dude? GM in the chat. JJ, how are you, my friend? I know you're coming off of a bit of a hiatus from the markets. Good to see you back. It feels like everyone's been a little bit MIA for the last couple of weeks. So you know what? Maybe it hasn't been a bad thing that I've been focused on what I've been focused on, because at the end of the day, it's going to improve how I help you all, how I help you on your journey towards consistent profitability in trading and understanding levels and understanding the chart and giving you that teach a man to fish, always a skill that you have in your pocket, that you, as long as you have an internet connection, you can get into the market and trade. Part of the beauty about the crypto markets, and you don't even have to trade crypto assets anymore. You can trade equities and commodities. So regardless of what your background is, where you're from, who you are, what your history is, you can trade these markets so long as you have an internet connection and some capital in a wallet. And that's a beautiful thing, ain't it, baby? It's a beautiful thing. Okay, we're going to move this along. Switch this up over here. There we go. What are we looking at? We're looking at the BTC weekly chart. Let me switch this music up really quickly because I don't want to listen to just the same thing over and over again. We're going to put on, let's put this on. There we go. Some vibes. Now I'm going to give a heads up. I want to try and cut down the length of these streams. These 1 to 2 hour streams just aren't going to cut it anymore. It's too long. It's disrespectful to people's time. I mean, look, we're even 10 minutes in already, and I've just done an intro. So I have to work on speeding this process along, getting the information to you faster so that you can get in, grab the information, the levels, the lessons, the outlook, the strategy, all that, and then get on with your day, right? It needs to be impactful. Boom, 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 boom. And that's part of what I'm working on. Part of all the stuff that I'm working on in the background, in the back end, so that I can be quicker and more precise and more compact with the way that I output, so that it's more useful to you all, right? Like, I get it. Who the fuck has 2 hours in a day to watch someone else blab about levels on a chart? You just want to get in, you want to get your relevant information, and you want to move on. So that's what we're going to be about. So we're looking at the BTC weekly chart. You know, nothing's really changed since last week. We're up into a weekly range quarter level, but there's nothing to update on the weekly chart. Let me just switch over to this real quick. I'll do my spiel. Welcome to Rapture's Scalp and Swing Sessions number 23. We do a little lunch levels today, where we'll look at high time frame levels, discuss some strategy for the days ahead. We'll take a look at BTC ETH and Sol, maybe an altcoin or two if there are any requests. And if you have a request, make sure to drop it into the chat. Whether you're joining us from YouTube or Twitter, go ahead and pop that into the chat. Always appreciate feedback, always appreciate questions, and always appreciate a good chart request. And we'll take a look at my high time frame swing screener pro to take a look and see if there's been any interesting SFPs on the highest of time frames on the weekly, to see if there's any interesting charts developing in altcoin land. And don't forget, if you're looking for an exchange to use, shout out to the good folks over at BingX. Use code Rapture at bingx.com to get yourself some sign up bonuses. They have a lengthy list of assets that you can trade on up to 100, 150x leverage. Is something ridiculous. Now, I recommend that you take a much more measured, reserved approach and maybe dial into 10x leverage. But hey, you do you. You know, I'm not your father. I'm not your brother. I'm not your cousin. I'm not your granddaddy. I'm just Rapture. And you can do whatever you want to do with that leverage dial. I suggest 10x at a maximum. But hey, you do you. Back to the BTC chart. Here we go. Weekly. Again, nothing to update on the weekly time frame for the BTC weekly chart. We're still trading within this inside week, going on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th week inside of this week. We're also putting in an inside week. Here, we put it in inside week here, with this candle being entirely within this week. And we're now in here. So I would look for a fade at either ends of the weekly, of that weekly candle. Now you could go, if you want to do a little update, grab your weekly range quarters, pop that on there, and look at that. We've tagged one of the range quarters. I just don't want to make my chart too messy, so I'm not going to do that, because ultimately this is the one we're still trading within. It's wild. And if you remember, if you recall back here in November, late November, after that first big move down off of the all-time highs in late September, early October, we traded inside week here for like 10, 12 weeks, right? So we're doing a very similar thing. And the pattern look very similar, right? Like punctured up, although we didn't take out the inside weak high, whereas here we did. But we punctured up and we came down. Now, there was a much more faster and aggressive sell-off from that pierce up. We've sort of seemed to be basing here. So, you know, I have a feeling if we get a weekly SFP to the downside, a bullish weekly SFP somewhere in here, that is going to be a really good long. Until then, though, I don't really like, this is the definition of diddle in the middle, right? We're diddling in the middle of this weekly candle into the range quarters. It's definitively the middle. So I don't really want to fuck around here and have a bias, to be perfectly honest. From right here, at least on a weekly time frame. When we get down to lower time frames, let's take a look at daily. So daily is possibly going to put in a daily SFP here. We don't know. 6.5 hours to go. It's a lot of hours to go. We can see that it came up into that level. What we'll do is we'll move this candle here, this line here, so you can definitively see that. But it does happen to be that weekly range quarter there. So that's what we're facing here. I think if you get a daily SFP in here within this daily bearish breaker that we've been hunting shorts from, I think that may send us down to give us either that weekly SFP somewhere in here, or ultimately to take out that monthly level that we've been eyeing down here, this level that we've been waiting for now for a month and a half or so, right? Like, this came down end of January. We've done end of February, March, range bound. We're early April, so not quite a month and a half, but we've been waiting. Ultimately, this is the level we're looking for, which would be beautiful if that did a weekly SFP into that level. But I cannot predict that that's going to happen. We just have to play with what the price action is giving us. And for right now, I mean, this is not a bad area to be hunting a short. As you know, we outlined this daily bearish breaker last live session, and it's still in play. You can see we've had a few shorts off of it, right? A good one there. Right now, potential for one setting up here. I'm just looking at the levels now to see, and I think I'm going to now move this here, and we're going to bring this one up here. Oops. Oops. No, come on. Okay, there. And we're going to also bring it here. These are some of our daily levels we'll be looking for. There's another one right there. Do I think that's going to be relevant? I mean, it might be. I just don't want to get too muddy with the levels on here. But you know what? You know what I said? I'd rather have it and be ready for that price interaction into the level than not have it and then try and guess what the fuck is going on. Very good chance that if this closes a daily SFP, we're going to be seeing into here and ideally or possibly down into here. H12, let's see. Okay. Nothing to update on H12 here. Already looks pretty clean. But on H4, let's take a look. Okay, this is a lot going on here. Okay, so we had our H4 bullish breaker that we outlined last live session, and look at that, held as the long, right? Took out some levels within that H4 bullish breaker, and we've gotten follow through. We can get rid of this now. Just looking around to see we can get rid of this, but as you can see, what we can see here is, look at that, H4 SFP into that level. H4 SFP into that level. We can get rid of that. There's a lot going on down here. We can get rid of that. There we go. We've cleaned up some levels there on H4. H4 SFP there, which could be giving us that daily SFP. Let's take a look and see. Okay. I'm just looking to see if we've had an M15 breaker, and no, it did not confirm. Quite a gnarly rejection off of there, but unfortunately, the market structure break level is here, and that's exactly where it SFP'd and held. Okay, so there's the M5 bearish breaker. You could probably look for a short with up in there. If price bounces up into there, you're hunting shorts. Still 2.5 hours until this SFP confirms, but like I said, it's 6.5 hours for the daily SFP, so you could get a retest up into here before nuking down and giving that daily SFP. Those are two things I would monitor those. What happens with this H4 SFP? Does it confirm? And as we get closer to the daily close, what happens down in here? You know what I'd say though? Because, sorry, apologies about that. Someone is blinging my Telegram. Here is an hourly breaker. It is not confirmed. This is a non-confirmed H1 bearish breaker. I know I'd said that the M5 is already confirmed. There's a lot of levels going on in here that you might just want to wait for the H1 to close below and then look for the retest up in here rather than playing this M5. Rather than playing that M5 is what I would honestly say here. This trade, this low time frame scalp here is already done. Yes, you could get another trigger within this M5 bearish breaker that has confirmed. But today's a Monday. As I pointed out before, Trump is mid-speech. Who knows what the fuck that guy's going to say? It could whipsaw either way. But if you get that H1 confirmed, then you're playing with the daily SFP. Right? You're trading with that SFP. Because it's more likely to confirm if you get the H1 close below, market structure break, play it on a retest, that daily SFP, if it confirms at the close, with that hourly MSB taking place, confirming this breaker, you are trading with direction at that point. Whereas right now, on a Monday, Trump speech, headline risk, playing an M5 breaker, I mean, your invalidation will be super tight, and you can play it super close to the chest and cut early if you need to. So I'm not telling you not to take a trade in here. If you get price that comes up into here, say you get price that comes up, and you get some movements like this, does some stuff like that, right? And what I would do is, say you get price that comes up into here, and you get something like an M5 SFP in there that closes below there, right? Like, this is just hypothetical. You have to just imagine that this is price that's taken place. The origin of that move, if you do get price that looks like this on M5, a swing low that creates an SFP within that breaker and then closes below, that is a confirmed market structure break. You short the retest, right? This is what I talk about all day long, right? This is the inception trade, right? But we don't have anything to suggest that yet, right? So what that looks like in theory, not in theory, but in practice, I'm not going to scan around through it, but it would look something to this effect, where it would be price coming up into the zone, putting in a swing high within the breaker, which then gets SFP'd and a close below, market structure breaking the swing low that creates that SFP, right? The swing low that forms the wick of the SFP closes below, confirms the market structure break, short on a retest. That would make this is all hypothetical. Please remember, this is all hypothetical, but that would make this a bearish breaker, right? Exactly what this is. Exactly what this is what that would be. So for anyone curious what the inception trade is and what breakers are, that was it there, okay? But like I said, your safer trade right now is waiting for an H1 close below there. So that is BTC. That is BTC high time frame levels. The one to really focus on here is, does this SFP the daily right here? Likelihood increases quite a bit if you confirm this H1 breaker with a close below. All right, so what would that be? You would come down, you close below here. Then you would look for price to do some sort of chop up into here. And then maybe you get an H1 SFP within there, right? Maybe the SFP's in there. You just take the SFP. You don't need to wait for the breaker off of that because you're already confirming quite a few steps. So you absolutely can say you get an H1 SFP there, do an M5 bearish breaker, short the retest. Absolutely. And that is the inception trade at its finest, right? Like 4 layers deep, but you don't have to. You could also just wait for the H1 SFP, short on the close, stop goes up here. Again, this is not confirmed. You need to wait for that to confirm, but that is what I am looking for here on BTC. Okay, there's our levels for BTC. Let's move this along and take a look at ETH. Go to the weekly. Similar to BTC, trading that inside week, the inside, right? We're inside this week, all of these weeks. Well, now, last week we traded completely inside that week, and we're still inside that week. And we're up into a range quarter of that weekly. Nothing to change on weekly though. On daily, so what I see that is interesting here that stands out right away to me is we're putting in a daily SFP here, similar to BTC, except on ETH, it is already back below the SFP level. So that is notable. It's been on H12. H12 already closes an SFP, so you already have a much higher signal than BTC right now because we already had the H12 closes as an SFP. So immediately what we can do is go down to H1. Right, so you know how on BTC I was just pointing out, actually, you know what? No, it's this one here. Okay, so there's your H1 breaker. This is a wide gap. This is a market structure break style breaker. What I would do here is I would adjust this to be a market structure shift, which would take it to here. If this hourly candle closes below here, which it's looking fairly likely, still just under 20 minutes until the close. But if you get an H1 close below that market structure shift level, there is your confirmed structure shift breaker. You short on our retest in here, right? Does anyone have any questions about that? I know I walked through it kind of fast, but like I said, I'm trying to do these faster than I have in the past because they need to stop dragging on. My time is valuable, so is yours. Let's go to H4 here. Are there any H4 levels I would highlight here? Nothing really different that I would outline on H4 than what's already outlined. Maybe this, maybe this. Maybe I'd get rid of that because we sliced right through it. We sliced right through it there. We sliced, maybe not. It's been providing trades. So I'm gonna leave that for now. This I like this short on ETH, to be honest. If you get that structure shift confirmed, I'm sure M15's already confirmed. No. Yeah. M15 confirmed the market, and look at exactly where it's rejecting off of is that H1 structure shift level. It's funny how price does that, right? As soon as you know and understand what you're looking for, get rid of that. That was a failed breaker. As soon as you know what you're looking for, right? Once you understand what it is that you're looking for, why did I use this level? Let's back this up for a second. Why did I use that level there? So there's two types of breakers for entry positions, for their entry setups. There's a market structure break, which is for a bearish setup. It's the swing low that creates the wick of the high time frame SFP, which is right here. Right here. This level here is the swing low that creates the wick of the high time frame SFP. This is that high time frame SFP right here, the daily SFP. This is the swing low that created it. Making this, when it closes below, to confirm it, a market structure break, but it needs to close below to confirm it. Now, often, if that swing level is too far away, that by confirming that level, you're missing a lot of the trade and you're late to the trade, what we can do is another type is a market structure shift. And what that is after the SFP, after the wick of the SFP takes place, the very next swing level to the opposite direction, right? So just like this was the swing low that creates the swing, that creates the wick of the SFP, this is now the wick of the SFP creating a swing low. So that level there, once you get a close below on the time frame that you're analyzing on, that becomes a market structure shift. But you need the close below. It's not before. Why is that a weird? No, that should be a 1. There we go. So if you close below confirming that, that becomes a market structure shift style breaker. Do you understand the difference? This is a structure break. This is a structure shift because it's an internal. This is, think of it in ranges, right? Like this is a swing low to swing high. This is a range. You close below that, you're breaking the range, making a market structure break. This is an internal swing level, so you're getting a structure shift internally. They function similarly, but one has higher weighting. I put higher weighting behind a market structure break than I do a market structure shift. So why did I outline this as a breaker? Because the market structure break level is far away, and we have an internal swing level that you can get an earlier entry by marking out that breaker. And if you confirm it with a H1, an hourly candle close below the market structure shift level, you're looking to short or retest, and it's likely to come somewhere in there. And if it goes above, your trade is invalidated. So that's why your stop goes up here. Okay. Is there anything to update on H4? No. That was it. There is your ETH chart. Let's get to Solana. And again, lads, any questions, pop them in the chat because I am moving along quicker today. We're already pushing up on half an hour. I don't want this to run on long. But I am noticing that I'm able to do it in this faster cadence. Rapture's just got to talk a little faster. If you listen a little faster, I ain't got to slow down for you. What's that 50-cent line, right? So on weekly for Solana, again, similar to BTC and ETH, inside week continues 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th week inside there. Now something interesting on Solana is it took out that low there into that weekly range quarter. So maybe there's reason for a long here more than the others, but BTC isn't looking like longs to me. Neither is ETH, so I don't know why. Okay, so this was our daily bearish breaker. We marked out last session, right? We marked it out on Monday. No. Here, we marked it out here. Look at that. We got a daily SFP into the daily bearish breaker. If we pop down here, I can show you what took place, what you look for, what you're doing. So this is an H1 bearish breaker, and actually we're into that now with H1 SFPs into it. Yeah, I don't know about that whole bullish thing that I said a moment ago, but look at the reaction off the weekly level, right? Like weekly levels get the strongest reactions. This reaction here, though, we're now revisiting that H1 bearish breaker, and we put in multiple H1 SFPs into here. Not multiple, but we've put in an H1 SFP into here, right there. I would view this more as the short side then. Zoom in here. A lot of weekly level interactions down here. the daily bearish breaker making it look like shite. We also have an H4 bearish breaker. So this is interesting. This is an H4 bearish breaker. There was an H4 SFP within the H4 bearish breaker. This bullish breaker is still valid because neither end has been violated through. So you can also see down here, there was an H4 SFP within that bullish breaker for the long. I got to get my focus back into the market. Like I said, I've been very focused on doing my systems building. There's been a lot of trades here though. Oh, crap. Get your shit together. So what do I see now? There's that H4 SFP. Have we confirmed an N15? And you have. This is a bearish M15 breaker off of that bearish H4 SFP inside of the bearish daily breaker. It's a lot of confluence stack in there. I don't really love what I'm seeing here on Sol. Like initially looking at it here on daily, I was saying, oh, maybe it's kind of bullish because it keeps taking out these weekly, or on weekly I was looking at it, and it's holding this weekly level here. I just don't like what I'm seeing here on daily, right? Daily bearish breaker. What is that? Daily bearish breaker created a created a bearish H4 breaker off the retest. Now we've retested that H4 bearish breaker, putting in an H4 SFP within it. That's a lot of inception right there. All right, and we just got that M15. I think you're looking for shorts in here. Up and within this bearish breaker, you're looking for shorts. Because the chart itself, keep in mind, it is early afternoon on a Monday. Lots can develop on a Monday in terms of price action. I'm less likely to take a trade this part of the day on a Monday. What I would do though, and what I do like doing, is after the New York session closes and into the early Asian session, if price is lingering in and around here and you get a clean signal within this breaker, that is a layup short. I just wouldn't rush into it personally, given time of day and day of week and what's taking place. Like, is that Trump speech still going on? Anyone in the chat, if you can let me know. Anyways, those are the levels as I see them. Extend some of this across. This is quite a compelling setup here to me. Look, you already had multiple M15 SFPs into the zone that have led to short side. Ooh, look at that one even right there. That was the money one. That one right there was money tagged up into there. You're getting multiple M15 SFPs that are giving follow through to the downside. Say it's say it's like 3 or 4 hours from now and price is lingering around here, and then you get another SFP into here, I would take that short. Right after the New York session is closed and volatility sort of dries, you have a very clear invalidation in uncertain markets. SFPs into supply like that tend to have good follow through. And then what you would do is you're taking this as riding that SFP, like know your entries in there, but you're taking this trade as this SFP here down probably somewhere into this breaker. I mean, it could just be here, and that's not a great trade, but you'd have to monitor this and just see what takes place if or when price gets down to that level. Okay, moving along. So that is BTC, that is ETH, that is SOL with our levels. Our high time frame levels. Let's take a look at the SPX really quickly. So what I see on SPX very clearly is a potential daily SFP, 3 hours to go until the close, potential daily SFP within bearish supply on a bearish market structure for daily. Swing high. Oops. I want that. Swing high to swing low. There's your bearish daily range. On SPX, we're up into supply, into that order block supply, putting in a daily SFP in there. If that closes like that, and you confirm this H1 breaker here, meaning a close below that, close below there, you're shorting a retest into there. But you want to watch and see what happens here first. It's not a great setup for bulls. This is looking pretty bearish, right? Daily SFP within daily supply on a bearish market structure. Right? Why is the supply? Well, here. That's your supply zone right there. I would watch that like a hawk to see if you get an H1 close below there. Okay, so that's our high time frame levels across BTC, ETH, SOL, and looking at what's taking place on SPX. Let's move this along quickly. We'll pull up my high time frame swing screener pro. Put it on the 1 minute. I doubt there are any weekly SFPs here because I would have known about them. No, there were not. Let's take a look at breakout. See if there was any weekly SFPs on breakout that are interesting. Floki. Nope. What I did not do was true. There we go. Okay, so there were some. Ooh, BMB. Okay. Let's do the volume. Let's put it above 40. Scan it again. So BNB and XPL. Okay, and why did I adjust that? Because anything typically below 50 mil, I'm not interested in. But given the market's been lower volume all across the board, regardless, maybe have to branch out a bit. But below that, and you're dealing with too many fake out wicks, and I like precision. Doesn't mean you can't trade lower volume coins. It just means you need to be a little bit more fine-tuned with them. And I just don't really trade alts so much that it doesn't seem like a winning strategy for me to be looking for coins with less than that much daily volume. And that's the Binance volume. Siren, I have no idea what that is. No idea what that is. It looks like a bunch of coins that Bang Access delisted that should be removed or at least had zero volume. So we should clean that list up. Let's take a look at Hyperliquid. BNB, the only coin with over 40 mil. Now, why did Floki not show up there? Oh, right, because I adjusted it for volume and Floki did not hit that threshold. Let's see, again, just XPL. And Apple. Ooh, that's interesting. That could not be good for the Z market. They put in a bearish weekly. Okay, there is our weekly SFPs. Ralph Fontes says GM, Ralph, or Raphael. Apologies, I pronounced that wrong. Hopefully I didn't butcher that and I fix it on that. GM, Raphael, how you doing? Welcome to Rapture, Scalp, and Swing Sessions. Ooh, getting some SFP alerts across BTC and SPX. We already knew about the daily SFP on SPX. And the fact that there's a BTC one now looking to confirm. Let's go back over here. So the BTC H4, we already knew. The Ethereum one already confirmed. Was there one on Solana? It had already confirmed. That's why we're not getting those alerts, because they already closed. These are only SFPs in progress, not once they're already confirmed. Right, and how do I get those? That's my high time frame Swing Screener Pro that alerts me to the SFPs as they're taking place, right? That's just from today. So what I did was I just added XPL and BNB. Let's take a look. What was BNB's weekly SFP? So BNB put in a bullish weekly SFP. Interesting. Bullish weekly SFP. As it put in a, no. So the market structure break for a H12 bullish breaker, which is typically what I look for on a weekly SFP, is way high away. But what we do have, we talked about earlier about the difference between a market structure break and a market structure shift. Well, there it is right there. So on BNB, you'd be looking for a price to come back down into here. Maybe it gives you an H12 SFP in here. Maybe it's an H4. Maybe it's just H1. But you're looking for something in here to realign on a pullback into here for a long trigger. I wouldn't long for here from here, but that is where I would look. And what was the other one? Other one was XPL. Let's take a look. Weekly. Keeps, wow, that is gnarly. That is gnarly. So this is a ridiculous wick. And what can you do with that? Well, similar, you make the market structure shift style, but you are getting an SFP into that weekly range quarter, and it's holding below that weekly level. Let's take a look here. What is happening here? What took place there for that massive spike? Wild. Okay, so what I would say is here, if you get an H1 market structure break here, you could look for a short. Or if you get the H12 close below there. Anything other than that, and I mean, you're getting H4 SFPs into here too. If you want to play this really tight and you are monitoring it and ready to cut if it starts to go against you, this is your bearish M15 breaker. Right? Why is that? So let's slow this down for a second, because I know I went pretty quickly through all this. Let's close this off. So, XPL, weekly SFP with a gnarly wick. Took out that high, also closed below this one here. We're trading below it now. The breaker for H12 is not confirmed. And it's a market structure shift style that we're looking for because this wick is insane. Looks like you almost went to the 50% mark on this. Inside of this, it's not a confirmed breaker. Sometimes you're not going to get that before you get the trade you're looking for. You're putting in H4 SFPs within that zone. You actually already have an M15 bearish breaker off of that H4 SFP within that breaker zone. It's not a confirmed breaker. The high time frame breaker is not confirmed. I will stress that, but that doesn't mean you can't take the trade. You can't take the short because sometimes it's just too long before that confirms. This is that H4 SFP. This is an M15 bearish breaker off that SFP. Now you've already had a retest and response. What you'd be looking for is another retest into there with something like an M15 SFP within this breaker for the short. I know, guys, I'm going a little bit faster. You're going to have to keep up with me because I'm trying to get these through faster. And I think what I'm going to have to do is just break these down into smaller segments and just do smaller segments throughout the week. But that's XPL. Weekly SFP, H12 zone of interest. It is not a confirmed breaker, but there's a lot going on in here. Excuse me. H4 SFP confirmed. And you're working with that M15 bearish breaker. Okay, what was the other one? BNB, we already did that. Apple with a weekly SFP. Where did Apple weekly SFP? Well, it looks like whenever I drew this back in December, looks like she played out. So the weekly SFP that Apple put in was here. This was last week. So it was a bullish SFP. Okay. Okay. Let's clear this out. You can do, let's just do this. Okay. All right. Monthly close levels. Very important. Monthly close levels. Very important. Monthly closes with the weekly SFP into that monthly close. What I'd be looking for here is a daily or H12 bullish breaker. The daily looks like it might confirm. You need to close above there. It's 2 hours to go until the close, but where did that go? You may get a daily bullish breaker weekly SFP setup after taking out that monthly level. I would watch this on the close, and then you do the same thing. You just wait for that close and you look for the second order or third order setup to take place on lower time frames in here, right at the inception. What would that be? H4 SFP within this zone, and H12 SFP within this zone, something like that. Then you look for an M15 or an H1 breaker on top of that. Okay, lads. So we went through a lot today in a much shorter time period than we normally do. In a much shorter time period than we normally do. We've marked out our levels. We've got BTC. We've got ETH. We've got Solana. And we've got SPX. All marked out for you. we have our strategy, what we're looking for, the levels that we're looking for. We took a look at some weekly SFPs. There wasn't much, right? It was just XPL and BMB and Apple. Apple looks kind of interesting for a long. But this has been a little lunch levels. Don't forget to use code Rapture at bingx.com if you're looking for a new exchange. Once again, I am Rapture. This has been Rapture's Scalp and Swing Sessions number 23, and we're bringing it in under 1 hour. There we go. Boom. Gonna keep to that. Gonna keep these tighter and shorter to respect your time and my time a little bit more. Because 2 hours is, let's be honest, lads, ridiculous. It's unfair to you. It is unfair to me. I just need to be respectful of that time. Don't forget, if you appreciate these shows, to like, subscribe, and comment and help support the growth of this show. Help me reach more people. Let me know that what I'm doing is helpful. Don't forget to join my Telegram channel, Rapture's Tradebook. It is a free Telegram channel. You can find the link to that in the description for this video on YouTube or in my bio on Twitter. And I'll catch up with you lads again soon. Thank you for everyone who joined. Rapture out.